Product and Technology, Power to SME with us. We have Mr. Nirbhay Gargia, Board Member, MSME Business Forum India. We also have Ms. Sudha Sareen, Senior Vice President, in fact, available with us, joined us today. And of course, distinguished participants who are free to raise any questions at this stage. So the issue is very important. In fact, e-commerce for the SME sector. Well, I am reminded of a study which I carried out about 3.5 years back for UNIDO on this very subject as to what is the scope of e-commerce in India. And in that process, I have been able to understand, in fact, what is the future of e-commerce in India and what exactly MSME sector particularly is, how they are linking it with e-commerce potential and taking advantage of the e-commerce possibility. The figures are very clear. In fact, in 2013 and 2014, the e-commerce penetration in India had just started for some time. And the total revenue out of e-commerce operations was only 2 and 3 billion US dollars equivalent. And if I tell you the figures, the way it has grown, in 2014 it grew to 13.6 billion US dollars. In 2015 it grew to 16 billion US dollars. In 2018 it went up as high as 40 billion US dollars. And we had projected, I am not aware about the current level of revenue which the e-commerce operations have achieved in India, but we had projected that it should be more than 100 billion US dollar by the close of 2020. Maybe a little more about this. See, there is a huge scope for the MSME sector in India because out of 630 million, 63 million, not 630, 63 million MSME enterprises, 6.3 crore enterprises in the country. Almost 5 crore micro enterprises, mainly tiny and micro enterprises, have no marketing avenues. They don't have showrooms and they don't have marketing outlets, in fact, to market their products. And this is a boon for them, the e-commerce platforms. There are so many platforms now which have come. Of course, you must have heard the names Amazon and Flipkart and Myntra, and then there are, of course, services platforms which are providing a lot of services, not the products, like IRCTC Railway and Make My Trip travel products and OYO hotels and so many others. You name anything, there is a platform available. So gradually the penetration of e-commerce is increasing. This is the policy of the Government of India also, that we should be able to take advantage of the technology and the digital India initiative which the government has announced. And that is how more and more people can get connected to this e-commerce, advantage and the benefits. The government has created a lot of ecosystem. They have, in fact, provided a facilitating environment, although some concerns still remain, which we will discuss later. But by and large, the government has opened up this sector to the Indian players without any restrictions, but to the foreign players, as far as FDI, rules and regulations are concerned, there is a slight restriction with regard to allowing multi-retail, outlets to the e-commerce platforms. It's little restricted because of the concern expressed by small mom and pop kirana stores and other smaller micro enterprises, because otherwise they lose out their business if you give multi-retailing to the e-commerce platforms. So while the e-commerce platforms have mushroomed in India, there is a lot of advantage available to the people who are linking, whether they are there are people and enterprises, individuals who could never have thought of marketing their products and services internationally with so much of ease. Take the case of artisans. There's somebody who is manufacturing a small product in traditional way in Rajasthan or Varanasi or in Moradabad, making a traditional item which forefathers had taught them, and using the conventional traditional art and technologies, and now they are able to market it throughout the world, because earlier they were not known even. these products were not able to travel beyond their local area or local districts. So they are able to market it. So that's a big advantage. And how this has all contributed to the growth of the e-commerce market in India. Let me give you a few factors which we studied in fact earlier, and just for your information, let me repeat them. One is because of the rapid adoption of technology by Indian consumers. So it's internet penetration in the whole country has really given a facilitating tool in the hands of the people, by and large general public, that they can transact e-commerce through their cell phones and mobiles and whatever other equipments they have. So technology is playing a great role. Then there is large increase in the number of internet users. Of course, that is the facilitating environment which government has provided. Then innovative business models. There are a lot of business models which have been innovated, B2B models, B2C models, and there are other business models where the people have only started internet trade without showrooms, without any marketing outlets, without distributorships, without retailerships. Their business model is only to sell through internet. You can understand a lady making pickle and achar and murabba from their home in Rajasthan, and without any outlet, without any marketing shop or outlet or anything, from their home itself, packaging in a good branding and then selling it through the internet, becoming a member of any of the platforms in India and then selling it and then doing a wonderful job. We have a lot of examples like this, that people have gained a lot of turnover through these platforms. This also allows alternative methods of payment. That is also a facilitating tool, in fact, in the hands of the consumers, that they can transact and they can make payment through any of the means. They can make cash payment, they can make credit card, they can pay advance, they can pay later, they can return the goods, they can recall. All these things, facilities are available through e-commerce. So what is the outcome? Until now, what is the experience of the MSMEs? We tried to study a bit. Let me tell you what is the experience. 27% of the Indian MSMEs which are online today use e-commerce. 27% of all MSMEs which are online today, which are using the technology platforms. There are a large number of micro, they are not using technology. But those who are using technology, they are using, IT systems, and they have the computerized operations. 27% of them are using e-commerce sites. Then MSMEs can enter into the e-commerce space with a very, very small investment, small expenditure. It requires very minimal expenditure if you want to really upload your products over the e-commerce platform. With very little formalities, you can become a member of Amazon, Flipkart, and all these big platforms. It's a very small formality and little expenditure. So your marketing starts. You upload your products, you upload your terms, conditions, condition design, and your selling starts. It links with your bank account and the money starts flowing to your bank account. And in fact, I had published a book, let me tell you, some time back, about 3 years back, Startup India. And I thought, why should I give it to the publishers? Because now there is an e-commerce platform available. Why not I upload my book on the e-commerce platform? Because then I can be, distributor myself. I can distribute my product, be a seller, publisher, printer, everything. And that is how it started working, and it went on the Amazon and it is selling. So I don't have to do anything dealing with the distributors and keeping account and all that. So this is the condition, this is the situation which other people also have got a lot of advantage. And MSMEs, those having adopted the e-commerce, have reported 27% higher revenue growth. So that is another, those who have adopted this e-commerce route, they have got 27% growth in their turnover because of this. So because their conventional methods of distributorship and selling continues. This is in addition. They have been able to reach out to far-flung areas, distant markets, unknown consumers. So you never know who is looking at in Assam through the web portal your products and placing the orders. And US dollar more than 100 billion is the projected e-commerce market, as I mentioned earlier. So it's a huge area. I remember last year we went to UP where they have started one district, one product scheme. One district, one product scheme is, basically to promote the traditional artisans of various districts which are working in clusters. Like Khurja is, working for potteries, Agra is working for shoes, Moradabad is working for glassware, Banaras is working for saris, Bhadoi is working for, n number of, clusters who are using the traditional art and, knowledge and making products, and they have been selling for ages. All these ODOP products, one district, one product, which is the scheme, are being uploaded on the e-commerce sites. So this is the big advantage, which is, of course, there are certain concerns also. People have expressed that a lot of foreign buyers, like, you name like Amazon and, Chinese platforms, they are garnering and they are cornering the market. So which is a concern for the Indian, selling organizations, marketing organizations, and also the people who are involved in marketing of their products. So government is aware about this. That is why the FDI policy has been slightly tweaked in a way that everything is not shifted to these foreign platforms. So there is a balancing being done by the government to restrict the foreign platforms to a certain area where they can provide us advantage. Once we have the technology, once we have the capital, because they bring capital also. That is another benefit. And we can't stop under the WTO that these foreign players will not come, because ultimately they provide us technology, they provide us enabling environment, they give us the facilitating environment for expanding our trade and business, and also create employment. So these are the advantages also of the foreign players. But at the same time, we have to develop our internal systems, and that is how we can expand. But per se, e-commerce has a wonderful contribution to our Indian economy and to the MSME sector, who can really benefit a great deal by linking with the e-commerce platforms. And this is the priority of the Government of India also. Like Digital India is a part of that. So I will not go into the technology, part of this, how it can be developed, how an e-commerce platform can be started, what are the issues which concern the MSMEs with regard to the other technology areas. See, e-commerce is one where basically the procurement, marketing, B2B, B2C, supply chain related issues. But then there are other technical issues, technology related issues in manufacturing, improving efficiency, improving the productivity, scaling of the production, automation. These are also very relevant questions for MSME sector, which we will discuss, of course, during the course of our discussions at a later stage. So I will not continue solo. With this context and the background, I would like to invite the expert panelists who are available with us today. So first of all, let me invite my colleague, Mr. Nitish Pandey from Power to SME. In fact, he is the technology head of Power to SME, the senior vice president, and is a very experienced technocrat as chief technology officer, who looks after the Power to SME's technical strategies by focusing on delivering customer-friendly solutions that are apt and cost-effective. He is very passionate about coding. Very good. That's a very specialized area. And he has developed a number of e-commerce portals. Oh, wonderful. I think he is the best person to tell us more about e-commerce and how it can be made easy for the MSMEs in India. And has worked in the industry for over 20 years for designing, developing, deploying, and managing solutions in many industry verticals. So over to you, Nitish ji. And I don't have to ask questions basically. You know the e-commerce scenario prevailing in the country, and how do you think, what is the future of e-commerce in India? How can further it be expanded? What can be done for further expansion? Which are the other areas where e-commerce can play a role? Nitishji, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. I think my voice is echoing. Am I audible clearly? Because
now you are. Yes, sir. Now you are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. H.P. Kumar, for a very nice background setup for where we stand as an SME landscape in India and technology adoption for specifically e-commerce. So let me share my screen, and also before I share my screen, let me make a note of some pointers that Mr. HP left me with. He's saying what else e-commerce can do, in what different ways it can expand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll give it a thought as we go through this. I'll have to think on my feet. Meanwhile, let me share my screen now.
Yes.
Is my screen visible now?
Yes, it is coming. Yes, it's visible now.
Okay. I hope you guys did not see that.
Yes, it started.
Fine. So I think while the title which Zumair and Sudha have given me is technology and adapting to new trends and opportunities, while the thing was about e-commerce linkages. So I'm going to kind of mix both of them. I'm going to focus more on e-commerce, but to do justice to this title, which Zumair has given me, role of technology, I will also talk about very briefly about other enabling uh, digital enabling technologies and solutions, which Mr. SP also spoke about, like payments. And because I'm assuming that the audience that we have is of SMEs, and among them, a lot of people are from the manufacturing space as well. So,
Nitishji, when I was introducing, I mentioned that we need to look at the technology infusion also in the MSME sector, and that is why your presentation is very relevant for the MSME sector.
yes, so technology infusion is a very big word, like you said. In what many more ways e-commerce can expand? Same ways technology can expand in multiple ways. Therefore, in my slide deck, I have a menu card of technology from which any enterprising entrepreneur and SME has to make a very wise choice, because there's always this question of capital allocation. Where do you put your money first and then next to get the maximum ROI? So let me start with everybody putting on, maybe pulling out their pad and pencil and answering one question as to who has been the greatest driver for technology adoption in your organization. Is everybody ready? I know nobody can answer in this. So let's assume everybody is ready to answer this question. In your company, has it been the founder who has driven the technology adoption? Has it been your CTO, your head of sales, or is it your chief marketing officer? Somebody should have been responsible. There needs to be a sponsor. Otherwise, we get pushed into daily struggles of regulatory compliance, getting more business, delivering the business, and handling other emergent situations of maybe machinery upgrades, machinery maintenance and stuff. We need to have somebody who owns this project. Without program managing it, technology adoption does not happen. It does not happen as an accident. In fact, technology adoption not happening is a very big accident. Each SME needs to realize that business as usual is keeping you behind. Some of the numbers which Mr. HP shared with you are very genuine, real numbers, telling how persons sitting in Muradabad or how people working from homes are able to get their products across. And when they get their products across using online technology, it is eating into the market share at times, not always. It is eating into the market share of somebody who is a very diligent manufacturer of those things, but is not using technology. So there needs to be a very conscious decision, an owner, a person behind that force, an annual plan, a budget, and it has to be one of CEO and CTO or a CIO or CMO. But unfortunately, what we have seen is a common joke that none of these really were the biggest drivers. The biggest driver has been COVID-19, right? So COVID-19 has emerged as one of the biggest forces behind increased adoption of technology. As you can see right now, we are doing a very, very effective series of webinars and helping people in something that would not have been considered possible 4 months ago. That to do on such a wide range of subjects with a regular rhythm and to impact the awareness of so many SMEs by Powered by SME and associated firms like today we are doing with Vardhani Foundation. It would not have been possible, but thanks to COVID-19. So clearly, COVID has forced every company to become a tech company. If this statement doesn't look correct to you, and you have not become a tech company, then probably it's time that you wake up and start becoming a tech company. So what do we do at Powered by SME? What we do at Powered by SME is like in terms of being justifying this whole pitch that we need to wake up and adopt technology. Well, we should first make sure that our house is up to the mark. We at Powered by SME have made sure for multiple years now that customers are able to interact with Powered by SME and achieve their objectives online, whether it is through an Android app, iOS app, website. And you're most welcome to open our website, poweredsme.com, or maybe smeshops.com or bizfunds.com, and you will see that you can do these activities on your own. Nobody needs to visit you from our office. Nobody needs to visit you at your office, take time and risk the COVID infection during travel or while meeting. So these technologies are clearly tools without being set so as tools of enabling faster information symmetry, faster business conduct, and of course, social distancing as we want to achieve in these COVID times. So bizfunds.com, smeshops.com, poweredsme.coms are in that direction of e-commerce and a digital economy. I'll skip the data slides because I think much better and much more latest data was there with Mr. HP Kumar. Clearly, he has a greater reach into the industry and databases. But we need to know that you need to be connected. While connectivity is the beginning, once you're connected, there's a huge lot of stuff that you can do. There's a huge lot of stuff that you can do beyond e-commerce using technology. So when you think of technology, please do not limit yourself to the technology that you use in your manufacturing or e-commerce, that's a website. There are a lot of other things that you do in your day-to-day operations, in your factory, in your office, that are crying out for a technology solution. It is, of course, if you're having a website presence, that's very important. The website presence need not be e-commerce, but e-commerce is a separate effort, and you need to get there in case it makes sense for whatever you're making, whether you're providing service, you're providing a capacity, you're providing products, or you're trying to build a brand. You can move from website to e-commerce if you do see a relevance. See, it's not an open and shut case. Some of you can go and try and visit the website. I'm not trying to pull down anybody, but you can go and visit the website of Jindal Panther. They are TMT makers. I think the time is not ripe, but maybe in COVID times things might change. If you go to the Jindal Panther site for TMT, you will see that website is not ready for e-commerce, even though it is a half-hearted attempt there. So you have to, as a as a founder, as a decision maker in your SME, you have to decide whether you need a web presence or do you need to go e-commerce way, setting up your own standalone website, or you need to go through aggregators. We'll talk about that. Then when you do a website, and then you need to have customer databases, which many companies, I'm very surprised. I've spoken to some large SMEs, and I expected them to have very systematic databases. What they do is they maintain Excel sheets, and they maintain disk dumps of laptops or employees who have gone. So this is not going to take you places. Like Mr. H.P. Kumar mentioned, the people who have used technology have grown by leaps and bounds. They are able to export. They're able to do more business across their states just because they have online presence, because they have better data management. Maybe they're using a CRM, which could be a cloud hosted, something like HubSpot, which I mentioned here. But there are tens of them. It's not just HubSpot. There could be something like Suite CRM. There could be, I mean, there are multiple of them. The names don't matter. What matters is that you need to decide to have a CRM system and make sure that your database of customers, suppliers, employees, conversations, failed conversations, successful conversations are there in CRM. That is the beginning journey of technology adoption, whether it's for e-commerce or even of non-e-commerce. Then there are tools for team management, like maybe social distancing tools are coming up for Google and from Google and Apple. There are tools for HRMS, which could also enable you perhaps in areas of compliance, things that you need to maintain from a statutory perspective. The HRMS tools, which are very mature, and they free up the bandwidth, especially in a small setup where an entrepreneur and a proprietor, and they feel so much, they get so much of stress, whether they are keeping up to date. This week I had to file that with the HR ministry, with the labor ministry. So HRMS tools are coming with all automated reminders and the right kind of forms that you need to fill and file. So HRMS tools. Then not only for selling and for internal operations, you probably need to look at e-commerce and blockchain for sourcing. Well, blockchain has really not taken off. That's my information. There was a lot of hype around it, but we will have to wait and watch as big companies and their supply chains adopt it. But blockchain helps like seamless communication of consumption and transport of inventory in the supply chain. So blockchain is something that you don't need to look at right now, but you should probably look at e-commerce and sourcing. Like we have set up e-commerce for helping people source from us. Then of course in manufacturing, there are solutions, very smart solutions for discrete manufacturing, which is also goes by the name of MRP2 in the B school syllabi. There's manufacturing resource planning, manufacturing resource planning 2. There was a version called 1 earlier, a decade or so ago. Then came a second version, which helps you plan your procurement based on the orders that have come in, based on bill of material that has come in. And these softwares have become, earlier they were only available with JD Edwards or SAP and the big names, but today they are being customized and tweaked for the SME space. All you need to do is Google and you'll find some solution provider who will be so happy to come down to your office and explain his offering to you. You will need to invest effort. You'll have to realize that there is a huge amount of payoff by adopting these SaaS-based tools for your manufacturing. MRP2 need not be a SaaS-based tool. It could be on-prem. I'll come to that also. Manufacturing people should definitely look at 3D printing. It is every quarter the cost of 3D printing technology and 3D printing shops services is going down, and the number of variety of material that they're able to print is exploding. So you will need to kind of do a Google search and do your own survey. But 3D printing is very useful for not only for the final product, but also for prototyping and sharing your prototypes for business development. And if you don't want to do printing, and 3D printing is not the only solution, you can actually get a real feel for your own manufacturing prototypes using AR and VR. These technologies are not expensive. Very young startups, very small startups, by that I imply that their services would not be costly. There's an explosion. Students out of college are setting up these startups because these technologies, the libraries that they use, the tools that they use are in abundance, and all they have to do is they have to talk to you. They have to figure out your CAD/CAM drawings or machine drawings and put them into the system, or they have to understand your training program. They have to put it in the system, and manufacturing training, manufacturing the product can be brought into a real field kind of thing. So I'll skip more things because we're running out of time. So of course, people who are struggling with, who have a lot of large volume shipments to do, you should look at logistics softwares, and there are SaaS offerings like Loginext is there, several of them are there, which help you do scheduling of pickup, packaging, tracking, fleet management. Then they use GIS tools, that is, use maps to know whether there is some kind of a fencing that you want to do, where your team should not go, where your team should go, and things like, of course, blockchain is relevant to logistics. Finally, when you're doing all these things and you're collecting data, data is the next oil, as we all kind of, GIO is the inverse of OIL kind of play. So while oil was the big thing earlier, and now data is the big thing, data is the new oil. And as you do these things, I would request you that you put in good data and put in efforts to capture the data, because the payoff of the data will start showing up only after 1 year and more. So you get BI and you're able to take actionable decisions, what is called as data-driven, become data-driven. And it's a journey. There is no quick solution right now. There is no quick solution. Please, nobody's promising you quick solutions, but the journey has to start now. You have to start capturing data, and you have to believe that your data will give you a lot of cost saving, a lot of marketing insights, a lot of short-circuited journeys to success, but only after a year or more. ERPs and much more are there in the technology menu card. So this was the menu card that I was talking about, which probably answers some of the calls that how e-commerce can go beyond what we are doing right now, that you go click add to cart, make a payment gateway. I'm getting a ping. Is it let me see. All right. So a lot of people joining. That's the ping. So we will also talk in the end about digital signatures and digital documentation, which should, if not, I mean, whether you choose between HRMS, IoT, security cameras with object detection, I mean, digital signatures is something that you need to adopt before the end of July. We will talk about that in the end also. So this is the adoption pyramid based on a KPMG report, and it is reflection of what Mr. HP was saying, that while there are a lot of people, I mean, this report is a little dated, it's 2017, but the message is true even today. Just being connected and enabled is not fine. I mean, just having an internet connection and having some WhatsApp communication, just having some website presence is not fine. You need to be really engaged, So they found back in 2017, only 2% people were using the technology well. So what happens is, do not be penny wise and pound foolish. Do not spend, you do not spend on technology halfway through. You will not get the benefits. But if you go through the full game, the advantages will be huge. So that those advantages are shown in this stack chart. We'll quickly compare the left stack chart and the right stack chart. That people who were offline, they had 1% export. I mean, if you look at the topmost slice of the stack chart, every column, while it was 1% export, if you were online and if you were fully engaged using your technology fully, you were doing 11% export. Now, there is a very scientific reason behind that. If you start using technology better, if you start using technology not for the sake of it, but from your heart, and you spend the right amount of money, you hire the right kind of talent, or even if you have to train talent, which you have to. But as Mr. HP also pointed out, the technology is coming into each of our lives. And therefore, technology aversion, technology inertia is less now. So training is not a big problem now. People are coming with techs, that much more tech savvy now. So what happens is, when you do digital, when you put your heart into it, there's an economy of scale that you achieve of technology. One process improvement leads to demands a process improvement or the second process, and this goes on and on. And in the supply chain, in the supply chain of your partners, your technology adoption makes them adopt technology. It's a chain reaction. Like when we, if you know that we are like at Power to SME, we are doing banking with Axis Bank. Now, because Axis Bank has now got APIs and a service of virtual account numbers, we are able to adopt that APIs and able to immediately get to know which customer has paid us what money within seconds of the payment coming into the account. So that's how, in an ecosystem, when you start your journey and you put in your heart into it and full budget into it, there is a collaborative where 2 + 2 becomes 22, not only 5. So just want to show that, don't take too many numbers too seriously from big companies. This one says this SME's contribution to GDP would go to 46-48% by 2020. We are in 2020. So they could never predict that we would be struggling with COVID. So while people will project numbers, what you need to do is you have to take your journey very seriously. Don't take KPMG and Deloitte, etc. very seriously. Just take your budgets and your teams very seriously in their technology journey. So this is what they have nearly developed, double their revenue growth trajectory. And in the B2B segment, they have increased customer base. I'll skip this. The question is, while all the big names are saying that go for technology, people around you would be saying go for technology. We see people, we hear news, we read news, we feel it also. But what happens? I'm sure there are genuine fears of insecurity about the internet, online frauds, of phishing, ransomware, virus, and these are genuine issues. Absolutely, they're genuine issues. We have had cases of ransomware. We regularly have cases of phishing. So you cannot run away from them. You need to go to the right solution provider, whether it is cybersecurity expert service providers, or whether it was a cloud provider who takes the full responsibility of it, or with right kind of disaster recovery solutions. So in our case, when we had this ransomware attack, what helped us was that we had a robust business continuity program in place. So we had regular backups of our database. If we did not have regular backups, I don't know how many Bitcoin ransom we would have had to give to get our data back, if at all we would have got our data back. So you cannot stop coming out of the house because road accidents happen. So therefore, just because phishing and ransomware and online frauds happen doesn't mean that you will have to not adopt the technology. You will have to adopt the technology. You will have to ring fence yourself from these risks. You'll have to pay for it, but eventually it will pay for not only to an advantage, but it will eventually also become necessary for your survival. So some of you, hopefully this is history, that there is weak internet environment in that area with Jio and Airtel bringing in a new lease of wild animal spirit in the internet space. I assume that very, very remote parts of India also have good internet connections, where factories are there, at least where business is there. Maybe some of you are very cost conscious, are thrifty, and are not spending on hardware and connection costs. I would request you to have a relook at it and drop this inhibition, because a laptop, a server, a security solution, a CRM subscription, they'll all look costly, but they are necessary for your survival. They are very necessary. Limited knowledge, please invest into doing some online courses or getting a trainer to your office, get a larger team trained. There was nobody born with all the knowledge of internet. Everybody has their own area of expertise, and you need to put an effort to learn new things. Then ROI, the data which Mr. HP highlighted and which I've shown should convince you that there's absolutely fantastic gains to be had by looking at e-commerce. So what is e-commerce is need to be very clearly defined, because e-commerce is when you can do business without your brick and mortar presence. Very long back, the founder of Make My Trip had said, he's a childhood friend of mine, though he doesn't remember that. So he had said that the e-commerce companies are nothing but glorified catalogs. Well, they are glorified catalog, but they are much more than that. E-commerce is more about, it's a lot more than that, and we'll come to the e-commerce stack. What e-commerce catalog cannot do is it cannot solve for geography, cannot solve for payments. And so those things remain, and you need to continue to do marketing. Okay, I'll skip this because already we are in the 25th minute. So an e-commerce stack looks like this. So at the bottom of when you start your e-commerce journey, you need to have a domain, you need to have an email service, you need to have an hosting service. Once you have that in place, you need to worry about disaster recovery, you need to worry about business continuity plans, you need to worry about software reliability engineering. Once everything's running fine, you need to know what is running on that. That's what you talk about solution. Then when the solution is running, you need to be worried about compliance, you need to be worried about making changes, and security of the data, security of the orders that have come in, of privacy, etc., depending on the nature of business that you do. And once your software is right, tweaked, and compliant, you need to worry about marketing. What you have put in, you put in some content over there, that you market that content. You succeed with your marketing and content. When somebody comes, he needs to be able to pay for the products or services that you sell. And then, of course, when a transaction happens, there's always a case of customer support, which you could probably do with people, with outsourced people, or with automatic FAQs or bots. And then, of course, if you're providing your services or goods, you need to have a servicing of the order, and where kind of the e-commerce stack kind of gets it's on the border area, because it's like offline when you start servicing. So, and this, your left side, which is e-commerce stack, needs to be integrated with all the things in your factory, in your office, your printer, your barcode printers and readers in your warehouse, your payment gateway, which is a third party, with your supplier portal, with your accounting software, and much more. So the left side does look very, very overwhelming. If you go build your own way, and that was the way that we did things long back. And big companies have to do that. Big companies, the capital allocation and the business models are different. They cannot be doing piggybacking on a third-party solution provider. Amazon cannot have third-party. Snapdeal cannot have a third-party. Myntra cannot have third-party. So when I was building my e-commerce in 2000, 2002, 2001, we had built our own thing from bottom of the stack to top of the stack. Everything was built by us. But today, there's a lot of good news. All those things in green, all those things in gray don't need to be done by you. You need to go to a SaaS provider. SaaS, full form of SaaS is software as a service, where everything else is taken care of them. You can go to AWS, you can go to Azure, you can go to GCP. Well, those are cloud infrastructures. There are solution providers who provide one single window for all this. They'll say, my solution will come, like you can talk about WooCommerce, or you can talk about Shopify, things like that. They take all the headache off your table. All you need to now probably focus on what you need to put there, what content, what are you trying to sell, and how, and then you probably want to do marketing, and marketing can also be outsourced. And customer support is best. I would advise you do your own customer support, because you need to understand where your service delivery is failing, where your content is failing, right? And what your customers' pain points are. But there are models where people also outsource customer support. So, but to start off with, do not consider that e-commerce is a big stack. E-commerce is only two blue things over there: the customer support and the content management. Rest all things can be taken off by your headache by a SaaS provider, like, say, I just gave you some names like Shopify, Shopify or WooCommerce. You can go there and do some self-service, and even for that, you will have a service provider who will probably take a one-time setup fee, and they can do for you. And I'm sure there are SME forums, members of SME forum can help you there. And for logistics, which is in orange, that depends. In case you are doing big, bulky items, which are delicate items, and you want to handle them on your own, then probably you do it yourself. Otherwise, you go out to logistics providers like Blue Dart, DHL, who are having tailor-made solutions for SMEs who want to come onto the e-commerce bandwagon. E-commerce has become something like absolutely every kid knows about it, right? So you need to be aware that if your awareness is less, then it's really going to be your problem. Out there, everybody in this part of the stack is providing us tailor-made solution at a very, very low, very, very tempting price point. So I just spoke about SaaS, right? Software as a service. It is stable and predictable. There is no question of piracy. Nobody's going to come and ask you for licensing and stuff. I mean, you cannot have that risk. There's easy expansion to foreign markets because you focus on your marketing, and the web crawlers are able to do a good job on respectfully made sites and structures. Service delivery automation, in some cases, those are there because your back office is also built properly over there. And there's easy customization. These are very sophisticated tools like Salesforce.com is there. Very, very easy customization. Zoho is there. Zoho has very easy customization. So it's almost like if there's a young founder in the company, next generation coming up, they can almost do it themselves. You don't need to go outside. But it's not that if you go outside, it's not very costly. So that's about e-commerce. What I've tried to tell you is that nothing to be scared of e-commerce. While there's a huge promise, it's also easy. It's the only thing that you need to get up and take and smell the coffee. The coffee is not going to be expensive. It's going to be really tasty. Okay, so when you're doing e-commerce, there are other things which have come into our lives, like we use Gmail, we use WhatsApp. But do you use Google for work? Do you use WhatsApp API for your business dealings? Do you use WhatsApp for business, WhatsApp APIs? Do you use Telegram APIs? Do you use services of companies offering NLP-based bots for your customer care on your website? Please do consider those things. You know, you need to keep running along the digital treadmill. It's unavoidable to survive. You need to consider eNASH and NASH. Even in NASH form, there are companies offering you mechanisms which are a mixed hybrid of digital and non-digital. Then, of course, if you do digital, let's go to the next second side, digital signing. I mean, I would exhort all of you to consider digital signatures using Aadhaar or DSC. A huge amount of time saving is there. A huge amount of problems can be saved in the court cases also, because you don't have to put in effort to contest the authenticity of signatures. I mean, in a digital signature of a DSC type where you have a USB thing, or if you're Aadhaar based, there is no way a person can contest, can challenge the authenticity of the signature. And you don't have to worry about keeping those papers properly in a record room and photocopy somewhere else. So you need to consider digital signing before the end of July. I mean, and once you do digital signing, of course, you come onto the journey of digital documents. I mean, if you keep digital documents, the storage costs, compute costs, the storage costs and network costs have come down so much that I don't think you would be ending up spending more than 24,000 rupees a year just for storage. I mean, there will be one-time upfront cost for setting up these services, but on a running basis, I don't think you would be spending more than 25,000 rupees a year. Use technologies for remote working, monitoring of your factories and business development. And remote monitoring and all brings me to the thing of virtual and augmented reality. I mean, it's such a fantastic thing. A personal anecdote: my son is getting into virtual reality, and he's working with a company which is working on a tool that allows teams to talk face to face across continents and in real meeting rooms. So that probably makes a difference in your business calls. If you're using virtual reality and augmented reality to monitor your factory, it reduces downtime without people having to travel. It helps people train with new machinery. It helps new people coming into the organization train with old machinery. It helps share your prototypes with your customers. So choose from the menu card, get ahead of your peers. Evidence is very strong that the ROI is positive in 1 or 2 years. Thank you very much. I hope I was able to do justice to e-commerce and some of the technology trends.
Wonderful, excellent, Mr. Nitish, excellent. In fact, I was thinking that if there are 63 million business enterprises in the SME sector, I think mostly 60 million of them would have got something or the other out of your presentation, which was so exhaustive. Full of information, a lot of opportunities, a lot of areas where technology can play a big role. Besides the e-commerce, of course, e-commerce is one part of the usage of technology where, distribution of products and supply chain, etc. can be managed. But then the other areas which you explained are really, really very important. for manufacturing, for scaling up, for efficiency improvement, for cost reduction, for sports, for HR and other core areas of operation, HR, finance and marketing and materials management, supply chain. I mean, a host of areas. And so it's great. We will keep talking. In fact, I wanted to bring Mr. Gargia. I think he has to leave a little early, so my apologies, in fact, for bringing him late. In fact, it was so interesting that I was so engrossed in that presentation, I forgot that it was taking probably beyond our time limit. So let me introduce Mr. Nirbhay Kant Gargia, who is in fact has very diverse industry experience of more than 20 years. And he's an engineer with management qualification and strategic management program, done his degree from IIM Calcutta. He's a management graduate from Calcutta. And he's also a certified chartered engineer by the Institute of Engineers India. So he has hands-on experience in manufacturing, sales and business development, international partner alliances. He is very experienced, qualified engineer and graduate from IIM Kolkata. I am sure he is going to throw a very, very, detailed, give us a lot of information about this technology as well as e-commerce. And especially, I would like to ask him as to what are the issues which are, concerning usage of e-commerce and digital framework for the MSME sector, considering the fact that there are certain limitations with regard to cyber security concerns which people have expressed, the counterfeiting of products, which is again a very rampant problem from various sources, and the intensity of competition which is coming day by day in and day out. A lot of players coming in, and then they are at the cutthroat competition, trying to overtake others. So all these difficulties, do you think are they hampering or they are in fact good for the growth of the sector? Mr. Nirbhay Kant Gargia, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think very relevant question. First of all, let me thank all the participants who have been patiently listening to our various thoughts. And Nitish Pandey has given very detailed tech stack information to all the participants, and it was very, very helpful. I will be happy if he can email the presentation which he just shared. I think it is very, very relevant to many people. Regarding the question Mr. Kumar just asked, is this going to be challenging for the competition perspective? What the way we look at it, the way I from MSME Business Forum, because we interact with many MSMEs and SMEs. I also run my own manufacturing organization through which I export to Europe and Australia. We manufacture engineering goods. So what I believe this e-commerce has a very diverse role to play. For MSMEs, for any business for that matter, the demand is the key. Right? So this demand has been aggregated, if you ask me from my perspective, demand has been aggregated by e-commerce portals because they, in the real world of tech or in the real world, when we used to say shared services. So I view e-commerce portals have spent the marketing on a shared services mode for various sellers. So any seller, any MSME who has a product manufactured, his focus is manufacturing, or his product is creating a service, or product is to create a product. So how to create a market? So e-commerce portals have given that opportunity to various small players who don't have the deep pocket to market. It takes a lot of money and effort and energy and focus to create a market. So which has been provided by e-commerce portals. So both the animals, if you call them big animals, e-commerce as well as MSME. So I think Mr. Kumar market of MSME 6,000 plus MSMEs in India, and the way what pace e-commerce is growing in India, it is 64 billion today, or it will be 200 billion by 2027. So there's a huge scale. So if both of them complement each other, this is, as per us and multiple studies, if MSMEs and SMEs are given a very easy access to these portals, they can really take benefit out of it. And the way tech is being simplified, the SaaS platforms, Mr. Nitish explained multiple things. SaaS platforms have really reduced the cost of tech. Earlier, in 10 years ago, but I used to work with GE, Genpact, around 10 years ago, and I was AVP technology sourcing with GE, Genpact. So I know the way the costs were that time, and now the way the costs are today. So with the tech going down, tech cost going down, e-commerce providing the shared marketing cost, demand already created. They are all the day Flipkart, Amazon, the kind of marketing they do. Now the recent thing which is seeing in India, which was not there in India earlier, the B2B marketplaces. They are further providing scope for the MSMEs and SMEs to even improve on their supply chains at the back end. So if you call it upstream of supply chain, sourcing has also gone improved for through the B2B platforms like ShopX, or there are multiple other like that, right? So the B2B marketplace has also gone up, given that B2C anyways, Flipkart and Amazon and other people have done well for the MSMEs. So nutshell, I believe there is a huge scope, and this is the right time for MSMEs to adopt technology. It's not difficult anymore. It used to be tough. And most of the businessmen, small businessmen in India have the second generations coming in. So the second generation is quite tech savvy. So even an 18-year-old son of any small entrepreneur can, make help grow on these platforms. So that net, what I believe, this is a high time, plus this COVID coming in. This is again bringing in most of the buyers, even who were not tech savvy. Even the old people are going online buying. This is again going to increase the market. So I also run a role for a company called EOL Stocks. This is basically liquidation platform, and I take a role of chief revenue officer there, right? So we have seen before COVID, we were doing 5 CR of kind of a monthly run rate of business there. It's basically a mobile end of life sale platform, tech platform. We were wondering what will happen to us after COVID. So the moment 18th May, the COVID days, the lockdown just got reduced, and you will be surprised that within 15 days we were able to do 3 CR of 15 days, because everybody is coming online. Physical contact has been reduced. People are very comfortable for working from their homes. Logistics have really improved in the country, across the country. So this is very, very high time for MSMEs to take the opportunity of e-commerce and utilize this. This is what I believe so.
No, I think very relevant points that you have touched. There is a whole lot of work which still needs to be done with regard to adoption of technology and also linkage with the e-commerce platforms. Am I audible and visible both?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it was very useful, in fact, listening to you. If you can continue to be with us for another 10-15 minutes so that we can discuss and take some questions also. Is it okay with you, Mr.?
Yeah, I can be there till another 4:15 because there's a lockdown. I'm sitting out of Mohali right now.
Okay.
So the lockdown at 4:30 or 5 o'clock. We need to shut the office.
By that time. I think another 5-10 minutes. No, I was just going to, discuss about this, the current policy of the government with regard to this security of database. See, when you use, whether it is e-commerce or, other digital platforms or adoption of technology, some way or the other, it is connected with the rest of the world. Take the Chinese, apps. Most of them, transfer their data to the other countries and China particularly. So the government has been very, conscious about it, and digital framework that the government, draft policy that the government came out, that also in fact mentioned that there should be a compulsion of keeping all that data within the country and servers within the country. So what do you have to say about this requirement, and how do we protect our data? Because data is the new oil that Nitish also mentioned. Deshji, can you comment on this?
Data is definitely the new oil. And is your question that are you saying you want to be careful about what data goes to China?
In fact, we are interested that the data of all the applications that we are using in India, whether it is e-commerce or other digital India platforms, it should remain in India.
Yeah, so I think that's a deep topic which I am only minutely aware of. There has been a big hue and cry worldwide around on this topic as to where should the data reside.
Yes.
And that's not only about privacy or making money out of it, like selling data, but it's more with the way governments pitch themselves is saying, in case there's a legal situation, then do I have right over, what they probably call it subpoena, so to call in the data. So government is saying that from the fact that if a transaction has happened in India and if the server is in the US, there could be a situation that my court wants that data and some company might say, well, the data is not in India, so you cannot just demand that data. It's based out of US. So from that perspective, now Indian government, and I think Adani is getting into that, they're going to set up data farms wherein every company which is doing business with an Indian, I don't know, sourcer or a buyer, the data has to be in India.
Well
So every country is talking about it. China already has very, very archaic laws around it, which of course US doesn't like. I mean, there are 10 other things which US doesn't like about China. So China says that anybody who does business in China has to have its data in China. So following the same model, India is also trying, and it should try.
Is it possible, Nitiji, is it possible that, okay, we wish to do that, but is it possible because there are so many applications we are using where the origin is in China or maybe other countries? So how long will it take to, in fact, to come to this level? In brief.
Yeah. So I don't think it happens like, is it possible to track and force everybody explicitly? It is like this, that you set an example out of the big guys and then it follows, right?
Yes.
What happens is there will be a handful of service providers of where you will be hosting applications. The government authorities have to only get after them with the compliance audit, that whatever application they're hosting, are you ensuring such a configuration or not? And it follows from there. I mean, the kind of example is probably, if you look at DNC, if you say, is it possible that nobody should no SMS provider should send SMSs of a wrong template? But I think there were some SMS providers who were made an example out of, and then everybody falls in place. So then there will be leakages. Like you want to stop websites that do plagiarism of songs or IP, intellectual property rights. When I was in Ghana, I saw that. I mean, it's a constant battle. You keep fighting with you keep getting down those websites, and some other crops up. So
Right.
there will be people who will do that. But I think as long as you achieve 96-95% of it, I mean,
I think that is fine. So let me bring in Mr. Gargia now. Mr. Gargia, one important question is, the government has come out with the policy of vocal for local. So you must have heard about it, vocal for local. I mean, that is basically the need for indigenizing. Now, how far we are, we can reach out to indigenizing the technologies required for our industry and manufacturing, and also for our e-commerce operations. So are we anywhere near, or we have to continue to depend on these foreign, apps and foreign technologies? Is it possible in near future that we should be able to reach out to a certain significant percentage, Mr. Nirnay?
Yeah, so honestly, I will not be able to comment on the percentage adoption of tech from India indigenized perspective, but I'm sure government is trying to do a lot of things, wherein I think Mr. Nitish Pandey just mentioned about Adani putting data farms, Reliance doing Jio, Airtel, all Indian companies, and a lot of tech companies coming out. A lot of apps are coming out of Indian entrepreneurs. So Startup India is one thing which will do a lot of things around. GeM Portal is one example which India is all indigenized. So if MSMEs or SMEs really focus on utilizing Indian tech, the kind of awareness vocal for local will bring at the lower level, at the ground level of the SMEs, I think that will be helpful. Now, MSME Business Forum, where I am a board member and I have no nomination as an SME as well. So we actually educate people who sort of get in touch with us to MSME Business Forum India. They can write to us, and we really tell them on various schemes the government is doing, what are the right things to do, how they can protect data. And we anyways have very close association with Power to SME, and we can now, Nitish Pandey also, now we can also refer people who have in tech issues or tech challenges. They can be referred through MSME Business Forum India people to right people who can guide them on security issues, or how can we utilize this vocal for local. But it is very, very important that vocal for local is a very nice slogan given by Modi ji. If rightly put in perspective, yes, we have a lot of scope. India, because of its own consumption, can sustain any kind of depression in the economy.
I think it's a matter of probably capital requirement also, the investment that is needed in probably building up these kind of technical infrastructure or apps and systems and these platforms is also an issue. Probably India may take quite a while in being able to spend so much of investments, and maybe that is the reason that we have to continue to depend on these foreign technologies. Do you think?
I think, yeah, if smartly our entrepreneurs are able to do it, if you see the investments in by PE and VCs done in Indian Flipkart and Indian Myntra and multiple unicorns we can talk about, even Ola or other people, they have all done this using the money which has been invested by people outside their country. So all the investors are ready to invest in India if we provide them good policies, sustained policies by government. I think we can get a lot of money from investors who are looking at India as another growth engine.
Well, it has been a wonderful discussion. In fact, we have been able to cover a lot of ground. It is not only that the e-commerce that probably we started with, but whole lot of technology requirements, the needs for technologies, and many areas where Nitish ji mentioned, particularly relating to the needs of the MSME sector and the industry as such. I think it's time to ask if there are any questions. Zubair, Saudamini?
Yes, sir, we have some questions.
Yeah, please.
The first one is from Mr. Surinder Singhal. He would like to ask, would Udyam registration from 1st July 2020 replace Udyog Aadhaar and NSIC enlistment under GPP?
Well, I can answer this question. Udyam Aadhaar registration from 1st July is required by all those which are registered up to 30th June. A new registration will be issued, and as far as NSIC single point registration is concerned, that will remain valid until its validity date, unless you have, unless your categorization has been amended by the new registration. If your categorization remains the same, NSIC registration also will remain the same. If your categorization remains, goes out of the micro and small, then you will have to go out of the NSIC registration. But as far as I understand, the registration will remain valid for 1 year from the date of change, that is 1st July.
Right, sir. So the next one is from Mr. Rajiv, who wishes to ask, his concern is about GeM, the government e-marketplace platform. He said it is not useful at all. Majority of the tenders are cancelled. They use the site, which he finds is useless, and the specifications laid down are designed to suit only certain manufacturers.
Well, it may be his impression, but the government is very, very upbeat about this success of the GeM. Well, I have not used GeM, but frankly, as the feedback comes, the GeM is going to be, initially there may be some difficulties and some problems with some people, because there is ultimately it is the technology which is working. There is no, it's a faceless and contactless system. Faceless, contactless, and cashless. So I don't think that once the government has come out with such a system, which is basically to remove the discretion and also the anomalies and the irregularities, the intention will not be to bring in very transparent and ethical way of working with the government procurement. So if there are any problems, I think there are windows for writing to the government. I think he should express his concern and point out these difficulties. I'm sure they will be rectified.
So, and the last question is, please provide some details about the new criteria regarding the MSME classification.
Well, Mr. Gargia, would you like to answer, or should I continue? Is Mr. Gargia with us?
Yeah. So you please continue.
Would you like to answer, or should I? Because
you please continue. I may not be very, very apt to answer certain. Yeah.
The new classification is that the micro, small, and medium enterprises will be, identified and determined on the basis of investment in plant and machinery and turnover, both. Earlier it used to be only investment in plant and machinery. Now it is investment as well as investment in plant and machinery and turnover. For micro, it is now 1 crore investment in plant and machinery and 5 crore turnover. Both have to be complied with. If you cross any one of them, you are out of the micro. For small, it is 10 crore. Earlier, it was 5 crore investment in plant and machinery, and turnover is 50 crore. So you have to comply with both. You have to be within these two parameters. Your investment in plant and machinery should not be more than 10 crore, and your turnover should not be more than 50 crore. If you cross any one of them, you are out of the small. And for medium, it is maximum limit of investment in plant and machinery is 50 crore, and the turnover is 250 crore. So this is the criteria, new criteria for classification. I hope I have answered correctly, if I understood the question correctly. So Damini, is it okay?
Yes, sir. Sir, and Mr. Tushar Mehta would like to ask, can e-commerce help the manufacturing industry?
E-commerce?
Can e-commerce help the manufacturing industry?
E-commerce means GEM platform.
No, sir, e-commerce in general. Mr. Pandey can answer this, I think.
So Mr. Tushar, that's a very open-ended question. See, e-commerce is done in two ways, which a slide that I skipped, where you're saying you need to introspect and figure out how you want to go about using e-commerce. One way of e-commerce is going through an aggregator, like go to Flipkart, go to Amazon.com, or come to SMEshops.com or some other competition of ours, where you manufacture and sell on this, and you wait for demand and then you sell. Or you can set up your own thing. Now it depends whether you're selling your servicing capacity, or are you selling your free capacity to manufacture something, or are you selling a product, or are you trying to build a brand? E-commerce has two very distinct components you have to understand. And even if you succeed in half of them, it is valuable. The first half is a web presence, so that you can be discovered. You know, getting to be discovered is the first, like, it's like marketing. आप कब तक pamphlet और newspaper से marketing करते रहोगे? So you need to have a web presence. If in the web presence you think that your services can be sold, immediately payment can be done. If there's a small ticket size, like, or if there's regular payment, small ticket size payments, maybe using Nash, then you can convert from a website presence to an e-commerce presence. So definitely it depends. E-commerce can help, but it depends on the nature of your manufacturing. If you're making huge transformers, then probably it's just a website. But if you're making small, you're making aluminum tanks, or you're making bolts and screws, or you're making some plastic rivets, then probably even e-commerce can work, where you have standardized SKUs. And I am happy to answer your question in more detail offline. We as Power to SME are very happy to work with SMEs and help them with some kind of handholding in small ways. So you can always write to us, and we'll give you a more pointed reply after looking at your profile.
Thank you, sir. I would like to tell our participants that there's been a lot of positive response to the PowerPoint presentation that was made earlier. So those people who wish to avail the presentation and would like to have it mailed to them, kindly send an email to support@power2sme.com requesting the presentation. Thank you.
Saudamni, can we do some e-commerce on the PPT? No.
Sorry?
So, okay. So I don't think people will get the joke, so let's skip that. So we don't have their email IDs by registration. I mean, we would already have their email IDs, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, I got disconnected because of some technical reason. I'm back now. So Damini, you completed your questions?
Yes, sir. The questions are done for the day.
So I think we come to the end. If there is nothing, I think it has been a wonderful discussion. Very useful and very, very knowledgeable. Particularly, I got to know about so many technical things, about this technology requirements and the whole mapping of the technology requirements, which Mr. Nitish did. And of course, Mr. Gargia's inputs to, improvement in the technology needs, and also the e-commerce requirements and linkage of the MSME sector, how they are taking advantage of that, was really very useful. I am grateful to both of you. We have had a wonderful session. we will continue to hold these meetings and webinars in future also. I think if there is any other question left by the, any of the participants, they can always send it to us. We will surely be happy to answer. So I express my thanks to both the esteemed panelists and also to Ms. Sudha Sareen, who is the Senior Vice President of the Power to SME. I am sure Power to SME is well known now, as Mr. Zubair explained in the beginning itself. It's a national level company funded by a lot of reputed funds in the country and also an arm of the World Bank International Finance Corporation. The objective is basically to help the MSME sector in the country in the supply chain and also to make them save almost 10 to 15% in the cost of raw materials. The Power to SME is engaged in providing raw material of all kinds and also providing credit support at very reasonable terms and other, of course, supplying of other MRO items. The one major advantage of and the reason for cost reduction is the usage of technology at all levels in the company. And thanks to Mr. Nitish Pandey, who is with us, he is the technology head. So we have very comfortable situation with regard to usage of technology. I think we are using more than what others are using. So, which is of course giving us a lot of advantage. So thank you, Nitish ji, again, and thanks Ms. Sudha Sareen, Senior Vice President, who is the brain behind organizing these webinars. Interaction between the industry and the other stakeholders. Also, my thanks to Zubair and Sodamini, my colleagues who are working backroom, in fact, for organizing these events and putting in place the whole thing in perspective. So thank you very much. Thanks all. We hand over to Zubair again.
Thank you, Dr. And I thank all the participants and our speakers, Mr. Nitish Pandey, Mr. Nirbhay Kant, and MSME Business Forum India for their continued support and joining us there, sharing their valuable views here. And till we may meet again, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.